Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. We are delighted to have a return visit of Andy Paterson-Jones, but he's got some news for us and we're going to unpack that. And we're going to discover a little bit more about filmmaking and the way that it can elevate your brand. So Andy, let's introduce yourself as your new company. Do you want to share?
Sure. So I seem to launch things on your podcast. Last time we were talking about the launch of Film Duo, which is largely a documentary filmmaking company. I've had my own company called New England for 15 years or so, and reached a point where I decided it needed a revamp. So New England is no longer. Yep. It is now Ace Studio.
Awesome.
And the purpose of Ace is to do all the preparation for help companies get ready for filmmaking.
Yeah.
And it just, the more I got into filmmaking, I realized there's a lot that needs to happen for someone to be what you might call camera ready.
Yeah, because obviously video and film work and stuff like that, it is a significant investment of time and effort and money. And yet you could have this amazing looking video, but then all the other assets, that the website and logo, and all of a sudden look really dated by comparison. So is that kind of the journey you're taking people on? Is actually getting them very clear on the message and then giving them the confidence to say when they sit in front of the camera that you do the most amazing work with Film Duo, that they actually feel like they can compete?
Yeah, that's very much it. I think what I've come to appreciate is that you have the 2-minute feature, or the 10-minute or the half-hour film that can project you in all sorts of directions, open you up to new audiences, share your world. But if it's promoting a product which is a bit jaded, or a website that doesn't quite convey the proposition, it's a wasted energy. Whereas if you get that right, and there's a lot to, if you're doing, say, an interview, there's a lot to get someone camera ready. They really, your type of work of know your purpose, understand your values, just be articulate in what you're promoting. Yeah. Ace exists to do that. There's an element of filmmaking to it. Yeah. It might be bring those values to life, so a whole team starts to be able to. There's nothing worse than you must have had this, where you go to a company and they go, "Oh yeah, we've done our brand values. They're in a drawer somewhere." Yeah, that's not living your values.
No, we had that at one of the schools that we work with, that their brand values in the bottom of their filing cabinet, and they said, "Oh, we fished them out the other day." You fished out your brand values out the bottom of a filing cabinet, and when we had met them, they were in a real sort of like bad place where I think they were in special measures. And obviously then bringing the team together around those values began to then give them the confidence. And I think one of the things that your process would do is give them the clarity that then gives them the confidence to stand in front of or sit in front of a camera. And I think that's often the biggest challenge, is that people are not confident because they've got no clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's, and there's nothing worse than values that are they've got to come within. Yeah. They're plucked out of thin air, and it's like, oh, we want, this value is, trust is really important to us. Is it? Have you tested it? Do people articulate the value really well? As you know, brand is every touch point of a business, from how the phone is answered, how the shop front looks, how the website looks, every touch point. And if it's creaky, if something's incongruent, the customer always spots it.
It's an interesting one. If you do a brand value search of companies, have a look at Enron's. Every one of those brand values are what we would expect from a brand to have values, but they were nowhere near living them, And I think for me, it's those brand values need to be an extension of the individual, that they feel that they're not trying to act, they just can be. And I think that's a big difference I find that in the brand process, or even video, is that we've done this amazing work, it looks great, and now you've putting a cape on me and trying to put me in a spandex suit, and now I'm trying to act of who I'm not. And I think that's why people find branding process in most cases uncomfortable, because it's like a makeover. you see those shows where someone, they look normal or whatever, and then they get made over and they got a slick suit on or whatever. But in 2 weeks' time, they got back their holy jeans and stuff, because that's who they are. And I think with brand, our responsibility is to find who the person is and then magnify their best attributes. Therefore, then they don't have to act; they're just being authentic, and that makes for great filmmaking and great storytelling, and a great brand and great conversation, because it's like, I'm sat in front of this person and I know them. That's exactly who they are. And that's where trust comes from.
I have this thing where if I haven't got a lot of time to explain what I do, and I'm at networking events so on, and I'm meeting a business owner, and I say, people use business cards less and less nowadays, but if they have a business card and they give it to me and I go, do you like that or do you love it? And it's quite rare people love their brand identity and their card and all the rest of it. And if they're alike, I say, I could help you offer a card that you love.
Yeah.
And they'll go, how do you do that? And it's like, invariably, it's putting them back in love with the thing that started the whole journey. Yeah. If it's a business owner, do you know what I mean? You learned your craft, you learned your how to do a profession, and then I'm going out on my own, and you're so excited because my logo is going to look like this, my station is going to look like this, my office, is fresh, but we get jaded. I reflected on, I chose the name New England because I'd read an article about Ralph Lauren, and I thought how he'd taken all sorts of English things and moved them to an American environment. And I thought, I'll bring something back. And I was creating new English businesses, new identities. But I just found it was something I had to constantly explain the interpretation of it. And post-Brexit, what is England? Where are we? Yeah. We're so confused. Yeah. And I think increasingly people make judgments in a blink now, certainly when they search with social media and stuff. And I just took the name Ace because it means the best, and what I try to do is aggregate the best people to solve problems for people. Yeah. If someone needs a specialist copywriter, I'll go and find the best specialist, on the subject, or photographer, or this, that, the other. So you're really paying for someone with 30 years experience of knowing how to build that team, to be a bit like Maverick and choose in Top Gun Maverick, the Tom Cruise character to know which pilot's the best for the task.
Yeah, and I think that, and I think that's great. The whole thing of bringing a collective of people that are excellent in their field. So rather than you just coming at it from what's convenient for yourself, you're coming at it from what's best for the client to tell their story in the best possible way and present them in the best possible light. And I think in a sense, you're probably more of a generalist, or like an overseer, overarching thing, but you're finding specialists in those different roles. I
mean, without getting too grandiose, I think it's being like a musical conductor. Yeah. I can play most of the instruments, and sometimes the project requires it. But actually, it's lovely to bring out the best of a younger person, or someone who's trying to find their way. I love spotting photographers that I see have promise, and give them a really cool gig to show what they're good at. So it's you're paying for that knowledge, that accumulated experience of someone that doesn't take a lot of time to know what you need.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was watching a clip, and then I ended up watching the interview with Noel Gallagher. And Noel Gallagher was on Talk Sport, and Darren Bent and I can't remember the guy now, Andy Goldstein. They're interviewing Noel Gallagher, and they're asking about songwriting. And I said, is it a case of, you write the lyrics and then you got it written down and then you present it? And he said, no. He said, I do it all. And I go, what do you mean you do it all? He said, I can play every instrument, to be fair. And I'm like, really? And he said, he literally write it with the guitar, acoustic guitar, so what he's always done, with no words. He said he'll play all the different instruments, like the drums or whatever else, and then the words will be the last thing that he comes up with, and then he has it, and then he brings it to the studio and goes, right, this is what we're going to try and do. So similar story. He's got the vision. He knows what he wants to achieve, but he go, well, I need a crack lead guitarist on this bit, because he's not a lead guitarist, so to speak. you need a brilliant drummer on this bit. And so all of a sudden it's like, I need the best voice. So sometimes, in Oasis, he would let Liam sing rather than him because the song determined it. So it's a bit like that. It's like, what the vision is. And then you're just like, right, I need everyone to play their role and be their best, at it.
Yeah. I mean, if you take filmmaking, I think my core is directing.
Yeah.
But I've spent an awful lot of time knowing how to edit.
Yeah.
So I can either edit myself or work with an editor. But, in the last 6 months, which I think makes you a better director, I've done a lot of capture. So I've bought a DJI, like a GoPro camera, the required 15 Pro Max iPhone, and invested in some microphones. So for certain types of shoots, the very first thing I made with the DJI was we were having a family party in Wales at a beach called Freshwater East, and I just ran with the dogs on the beach with this camera, and I edited a little film that evening. And it's like, wow, this is so cool. So increasingly, I'm seeing that as sort of great for B-roll. With you've just got someone new joining your team, Robin, who's got the massive experience of filming. He's worked in TV. He's a very high level guy. But you support someone like that on location. What a director is changing. Yeah. Because you've got loads of people coming through who are making massive projects on their iPhone.
Yeah, 100%.
And so you have to keep learning yourself whilst knowing actually how to orchestrate as well.
And I think this is the thing, the technology changes, but then there are key principles and key tenets in telling a story, which is what you do with a studio, is that at core, you tell stories, and at core is to discover the story. But then you bring the essence of, once we've got that story, then we want to elevate it through video, whatever. But what's the major trap that most people fall into, that they're running a business for a period of time, and they're working for loads of other people doing amazing stuff? But what's the trap that they fall into whereby they don't take care of themselves?
Well, you could say it's everyone's so busy. I talked to a CEO once, and he goes, the guys on the bridge or in the boiler room of a ship with all those control panels and this one, that's my world. So you don't have a lot of reflection, contemplation time. That's maybe where you bring in creative people who do think for you in certain areas. But getting through to talk to someone and saying, your brand's not really standing up to what you're trying to achieve. It's holding you back, if anything. Or a film to explain, your people are amazing, but no one sees them, So let's interview them. Let's get them explaining their expertise in certain areas. So I think the first challenge is struggling to find clarity. Yeah. Yeah. To being so busy and so, not knowing what. I had a great term recently, someone saying, talking about someone as a millimeter entrepreneur. And I go, what's that? And it's like, they're only out by a couple of millimeters in certain areas, but until they align, to have the perfect, or not the perfect, we talked about that. Yeah. Perfect's not a great standard. It's like the excellent film that articulates the values. So, you're joining a company and it's like, well, this company about, these are our 4 values that we just make all decisions that go through that lens of this value, that value, etc. That'd be better for recruitment and retention of staff. Yeah. It will be better for serving customers, all these things. But sometimes, we were just saying that values being stuck in someone's drawer, not being lived. Yeah. That's so it's very easy when you're busy and you're doing something complex to have many blind spots. And I think that's part of our job. We're when we're helping people manage their brand, we're observing for them. We're the outside looking in.
Yeah, and I think that the classic thing is that as a brand scales or it builds, it loses what the founder's original vision, and I think brand helps you tell that story. You know, as the founders maybe do more things, or speaking, or traveling more, or maybe just do more high level stuff, the granular of what's going on gets lost in translation. Or new staff comes on, so the founding staff team, they start to move on, and then the next lot come in, and they almost haven't got the disconnect of what the DNA was when they started. So brand helps tell that story. But you tell a story about Cobbler's Children, and I think for me that's quite a good summary of how people are unprepared to do video and those kinds of things, which is where a studio actually sit. So just explain the concept of Cobbler's Children, because it's heard in many different ways, you know.
Yeah,
so
sure.
go for it.
So if I illustrate it by talking about New England, so I came up with the name New England because I had a networking event in 2 days' time, and I built the website. I did the identity in one day, the website the next day, and I went to a friend of mine did me some really fast business cards. That's how much thought I put into the new name. Yeah, I spent 6 months on Ace, and I've gone and curated 30 years of work. I've gone, I need a new person to work with on explaining my work and my philosophies and all that sort of stuff. So I found a very good Bath-based copywriter called Piers Alder, and I've had a pack shop photographer that I've brought in and worked with me. So in the process of spending this amount of time, which is a first for me, you know, I'm in my mid-50s and I've done this career, I've never spent as much time inward looking and in order to project out. I thought, why is it taking me so long? And really sat with the question of, you know, I'm not alone. I meet loads, or I know loads of great photographers, designers, writers, you name it, who have pretty mediocre self-promotion, you know, websites and all the rest of it. They're not even that good at articulating in a networking event why they're world-class, some of them. And got me to that saying, that's quite a familiar saying, the cobbler's children have no shoes. So the guy who's the best at making shoes in the village doesn't have the time or the inclination to make sure his own children have the best. And then you look at it in other industries, there's many similar sayings, you know, the plumber's taps are leaky, the architect's house is creaky, you know, the horologist's clocks don't work, etc. Right. So it's not alone to the creative industries. So you start to sit with the question, why is this? I think it can be a blind spot that you put something somewhere and you don't realize it just sits, you know, an eyesore in your house, you get used to it, you know what I mean? I think time is a factor and investment. You know, part of the reason I've been able to spend this 6 months is sadly my mum died a while back and left a little bit of money, and I thought as a tribute to her, this is where I'm going to spend it. And it'll bear fruit, I'm sure. But my main conclusion is it's conditioning. So the analogy I've drawn in the article I've written called Cobbler's Children is if you take Robbie Williams, right? He had talent as a young lad, 16, he's in Take That. He has been in the public spotlight. He's in his late 40s now, nearly 50. Yeah. People have stuck microphones and put cameras on him all that time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if you've watched the documentary he's just done, which is really interesting, he's lived this whole life in the public eye, and he's studying and I think healing of, he was loved overseas, but not really in his own country. Mm-hmm. That really bothered him. And I think he's worked his way through it, but he's lived a life on camera. You and I, as people that help people with their image, we sit to one side of, we're on the camera, the photo shoot, but we're not in front of the camera. Yeah. And that's what I think you've got to condition yourself. You've got to really, you know, I've been at an event where I've helped draw a crowd for my client for an art launch in Mayfair, made films, made brochures. You see the artist and the gallery owner on stage getting all the accolades, and you think, we're wouldn't hurt for them to say thank you to me, because I've been instrumental in making this happen. But that wasn't the gig. I didn't put self-promotion as part of the arrangement for that transaction. But I think if you have got 30 years experience, and you know, I've worked on a £7 million web project for BP that took 7 months, involved 70 people. I've been one of the principal designers for a period of time on the Sydney Olympics. I've done some big stuff. And if no one knows, you know, they're just going to go.
And I think that's it. We get caught in this cycle of delivery. And I think we miss or we lose the sight as we're building our experience. And all of a sudden you turn around and sit back and you go, oh my gosh, 5 years have gone past or 10 years have gone past. And particularly like the age I am and the age you are, you get to a point where you go, oh my gosh, I've got more experience than anyone in this room now.
Yeah.
You know, and yet we don't talk about that, you know, and I've heard people going, oh, well, you know, my life coach with 4 years experience. Probably not. Let's be honest, you're not. And then I go, well, I laugh at that, or not laugh at it, but go, well, maybe you might know a little bit about life, but not the whole thing. And I'm still trying to figure it out as as I'm going on. But someone that's been in the industry 20 years or 25 years or whatever, they've seen the transformation of print to internet world, you know. So not that they know too much about the metaverse, but they know the leaps involved to get someone to that point. So if you're thinking about the transition from print to the internet, and now you're thinking about the internet to the metaverse, and you've been there because you know the pitfalls, all of a sudden the same marketing principles are there. Certainly the early adopters, there's this education process first and foremost. You've got all the excitable types, and then you've got the education process where everyone then starts to buy into it. And because you've seen that on that juncture in life and that juncture in life, you can bring that experience of how to make the transition. Whereas someone that's maybe been in the industry like 4 or 5 years, and this is the way it's always been, wouldn't know how. And that's what I feel, that people that have been in the industry or whatever, they underplay their experience. And, you know, doing what you do is now to say, don't keep it quiet, start sharing it. But the negative, and one of the reasons I find some people that don't do it is they go, yeah, but what happens if like I give away my trade secrets? And I always say to them, I say, they're not going to know all the stuff that you know in a 30-minute podcast. You know so much. So give it away. Oh, but I said, the more value you bring, you're more valuable to the market than someone else that hasn't got those skills. So don't worry about giving it all away, which is why we do the podcast. We can talk about brand. I can give it all away, but it's going to take a brave man to try and get 30 years worth of experience out. It's going to take you ages. So for me, it's a case of don't be afraid, start sharing, elevate, you know, put yourself out there and share the principles. Because at the end of the day, most people don't want to do it themselves either. So if you can talk a good game, chances are they're going to want you to do it for them.
Well, how many houses have Jamie Oliver and Delia and all the rest of it, cookbooks by the plenty, but can't cook at that level? Because there's two different things. You know, it's you might pick up a snippet, but give stuff away. You know, it's the way of the world. It's exchanging value. It's fine, because it's more likely that there's a seed of something said between you and I in this conversation that someone wants to pick up on and learn more. So I have used that 6 months to flesh out some core brand values for Ace. There's no point me and or you recommending to people, well, you need to sort your brand values out, but you don't have any of your own. It's like, well, what is that advice? It's just pontification. You know, I've gone in that curation of 30 years work, gone, where's my happiest place? And it's, you know, one project was going with a bunch of advanced skiers to Switzerland and photographing, you know, the latest ski gear. It was super exciting, and I like active lifestyle branding. That's my sweet spot. So the values that I've come up with, you know, the first one is prepare. That's a super important one for filmmaking, for branding, is really understand your subject, you know, and then focus on the task in hand. So, you know, give yourself over to the brand identity. The Ace brand identity is
look at that.
an A.
Yeah.
With a Usain Bolt type upward curve.
Yeah.
I wear it, I don't pronounce it everywhere I go, but I wear it most days now because I just love it.
Yeah.
A is for Andy, it's for Ace, it's for Apex, it's for, etc.
Yeah.
But it's focus on, if you're doing brand identity, do the best possible brand identity you can do. And then, commit, really go all out. I have played all out in that 6-month period, like anything, you pay a bill and then you go, well, a photographer, I've got to use him another day because we've done some great work, but that's more than I budgeted for. But just commit, keep going until you're happy with the results and budget accordingly. And also believe, really believe it, that, if you meet someone and they're conveying doubt, it's like, maybe they're not going to be the market leader in their field. But if you meet some people, a good example, a film we did just before the last Olympics, Tom Dean, 19-year-old swimmer, he says the words in the film we made, I can beat anyone down the back straight. And his coach said, Tom's going to be a great prospect for the Paris Olympics, but he'll go to this one. He won gold. Where was he as the swimmers got to the final turn? He was second.
Yeah.
I can beat anyone down the back straight. And he was a fantastic person to meet, of someone full of belief.
And that's it. I think that's the challenge is that if you want someone to believe in you, you first need to believe in you.
Yeah.
And I think what you find is that when you ask certain questions to people that are not clear, then, as you said, doubt comes across. Now, doubt's a process to get to belief, in a sense. And yet people don't spend enough time there to go, well, what do I actually believe on this subject? It's like, for me, belief is absolutely a pillar of brand, because without it, you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And when people are, so let's say you're trying to sell a brand to someone, the chances of why they're not investing in it is two things. Either they don't believe you can do it, or they don't believe in their product enough. There's a doubt there. And it's up to you to bridge the gap. And so in the sales journey, what's often underlooked is the reason why they might not spend the budget, even though they might have the budget, is they don't believe. So you've got to convince them that either you're the person to hold their hand, or say, look how much you've done already.
Yeah.
You've done more than most people. Oh,
Sure.
I don't know if I've done enough.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've built let's say I'm a builder. I don't think I've built enough property. Well, how many have you done? Well, I've built 50. Okay. But I don't know if I've built enough. Well, you've built 50 more than someone that hasn't, right?
Yeah.
And there's always someone that's maybe done 5 or 10. So you've done 50.
Yeah.
We all always know there's someone with a bigger boat.
Yeah.
There's always going to be that. But for your target market and audience, if you built 50, that's 50 more than someone.
Yeah.
They want to trust you.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes you have to show them.
Yeah.
This is what you've done.
Yeah.
Oh, you've done all that. Yeah.
Let's go back to the identity again. There's a heavier weight here that we basically, when a plane takes off, it has to be above 15 degrees. So that line is 20 degrees. And here, for my way of thinking, is symbolize a catapult. So I've told you I've spent 6 months to, I launched the site a few days ago.
Yeah.
We're doing this podcast, which is...
What's the site called?
It's a really long one, Daryl. Try and remember this. Ace.studio.
Yeah.
That's
it. It's great.
It's really simple. I'm doing this podcast. I've put my first Instagram post out today for Ace.studio films.
Yeah.
But this icon symbolizes a catapult that I've spent 6 months pulling back.
Yeah.
To release. So release is here, but you're not... momentum's the hardest thing to create in business. You're meeting something that's already starting to fly.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So,
Well, that's a really important thing, actually. What you just said there is that you have to take a step back.
Yeah.
And I think that another reason for people not doing so is I don't want to slow progress. But actually, you have to. You have to take that time out to go further forward. You have to invest, which means depleting your resources to go forward. Because if you don't, then what happens is you just stagnate. You need to create that momentum, as you said. And it's like, you know, to take something onto the next level by taking time out and evaluate and see where you've come from, you then, oh, maybe I should have gone that direction, or what have I learned, or what am I great at? Or am I now playing to my weaknesses rather than my strengths? Well, you're not going to know that until you take yourself out and you realize that actually you're doing the very thing that you didn't want to do. You know, and so for me, it's that going back to then go forward. So I love the catapult analogy. It works really, really well.
I'm in my mid-50s and I've got cousins who similar age, slightly older, several who are retiring.
Yeah.
Now they've worked in law, finance, retail, you know, various things. And good for them. You know, they're great people. And when we hook up, they're telling me about, you know, most of them, they'll spend the time traveling and then they'll spend a bit of time walking the dog a lot and the rest of it. And they're more likely to sort of take up painting or pottery or something. They're more likely to get a bit creative. They've made money to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's not my path. I think part of the reason you pull back as a creative person is to reinvent, to meet the new challenges. So you've mentioned metaverse, and we together have got some huge opportunities with our clients. If anyone hasn't gone and looked at Apple, you know, Vision Pro and see where things are heading, we're super excited about the future. I think to one of my favorite architects, Frank Lloyd Wright, I think he did his best work when he was 80, in his 80s.
But it's the thing, is that what experience affords you is the ability to do that, you know, and the experience goes, well, you know, I'll get to a point where I know what I'm good at. I'm going to play to my strengths, you know, and I think if you look at the best brands out there, they're very clear on what their strengths are and they just play to them. You know, it's like a football team. Use that as an example. They work out what their strengths are and then they just double down on it. They don't try and say, well, we need to fix our defense. If they've got the best strike force, they just need to score more than the opposition. And the whole team revolve around that and they get known for the best attacking force. And I think for me, it's like there is an exploration phase in life. I think you double down on where you know your purpose is or whatever. But I think there's that aspect of pulling back gets you to refocus and avoid the distractions because there's enough stuff to keep us distracted. So I like the thing of pulling back, having a look, and then going forward with that renewed energy, that renewed strength. And here's the thing: a catapult, you're aiming at something. Then
absolutely, yeah.
You know where you're going to head this time, whereas before you might not.
Yeah. You and I are unapologetic Liverpool fans, and I've only recently heard the story of Roy Keane and Fergie's fallout. It came because Roy Keane was put forward as one of the players to assess a game when they played pretty badly. You know, they're still in their peak, but he'd been critical of the players. And long story short is Ferguson didn't like the interview. He got the whole squad in the room, said, we're not putting this interview out. And you know, the next day he announced the squad, Roy Keane's never playing for us again. And it's like, that is a manager of the old school, someone I admire, who was the father figure in the club. Our great hero, Klopp, is more like a brother.
Yeah.
You see him when a new player joins. He's hugging them. He's making them feel $1 million. It's much like the Stokes and McCullum in cricket. You know, they play as equal. It's a different form of leadership.
I saw the interview talking about player relationships. So Liverpool signed a Japanese player, it's a Japanese captain called Endo. And there was a thing where they actually showed, it's called like Inside Liverpool. And they showed the first conversation that Klopp had. So this wasn't a film that sit down like we're doing here. This was he came in and there's a camera pointing. Yeah. And Klopp said, we need you. Yeah. That was his first thing. He said, we need you. We're so glad you're here. Yeah. I mean, what does that do to someone? You know, it's just like, because he's got all the players that have gone before. He's the pressure. I'm in another country. I've gone from Germany, playing near towards the bottom.
Yeah.
Big fish in a small pond, because he did really well at Stuttgart. And all of a sudden, he's like walks into this change room where they're all stars, and then he says, "We need you."
Yeah.
And I think that for me is ultimately what you need in your corner when you're building a brand. It's like, we need you.
Exactly.
And we can help you, and we need your skills, talents, and abilities. So let's help elevate those, so someone can actually see it.
Yeah. So part of the process, the 6 months I've described, is sitting down with Piers, the copywriter, and explaining things, talking things through. We've actually annotated our process and put that as a feature. He interviewed me about the process we've been through. Yeah. But it's taking things like a case study like Caribbean Premier League cricket. The marketing manager who had the idea had a meeting with someone that could have financed it. It went awfully. He didn't have the right collateral. He had the right idea, wrong collateral. He met us. We showed him a way he could present. It was basically combining a book and a 10-inch video screen. He said, "I want it, must have it. How long, how much, all the rest of it." We made something for him. He flew to New York. He sat down with the investor. Investor said, "Yeah, I love it. 25 years. I'll back it for 25 years.
Wow.
Can you make 5 more of these books? One to Richard Branson, one to Hollywood stars, IPL franchise owners." That marketing manager is now the CEO of the whole franchise. We recently made a 10-year commemorative book of the journey they've been on. So you're talking about, meet the person with the right, we solve complex problems.
Yeah.
So, we should be commanding a really good fee for our work nowadays. We should be sitting in boardrooms, but not necessarily expensive across the board, because we can nurture the new talent.
Yeah.
We can find what's happening in the metaverse and be very, very cost effective.
But it goes back to belief. So like for me, there are obviously clients that will pay the rate that I'm worth and to deliver what we can do. But there is also a concerted thing in my head will go, these people are up and coming. They're disrupting an area. I want to be a part of that, but they're not there now. So then you have to make a decision. You say, well, okay, I'm not going to make as much money. Maybe I'll make a loss even, but I want to back them, because I think if we can stay in step with them, then everything grows and we can help. And I think that's what experience teaches you, where to take the risks, where to invest in. Because I think your skills, talents, and abilities, it's not always about money. It's also your skills, talent, invested in someone. So you always say, right, I want to invest in that company because I know they're going to make a decent impact. And I think that's the biggest thing that's changed for me, is that, are these people aligned to who we are? And if they're not, I don't want to work with them. Experience tells you that. But when you're inexperienced, you just like work for anybody.
Yeah. There's also an element of you can structure a deal a certain way.
Yeah.
So I did some filming in Mallorca in September with someone that is, what he offers the world is fantastic. He's super charismatic. I've done it largely on spec, but we have to sit down very soon and go, he's going to probably appeal to the big streamers. Yeah. And he wants, he loves working with us. So he wants us to be part of the journey going forward. So, we might still work on a shoestring for a while longer, but have a percentage of when it blows up, And
that's what experience teaches you. It's I can't afford it. Well, how can you make it more affordable? Can you cut the deal a different way? Can you break it down into payments? Can you do an equity share or whatever? Yeah. And I think those skills, aside from your brand skills, you can bring to the table to all the clients that you work with, because they're trying to leverage the same thing,
I mean, we've used the word brands quite a lot, and marketing and branding are quite interchangeable on some level. And some people just don't really understand brand, but they do, because they drive a Mercedes or they buy Apple, or they do understand it. You have to, once you clarify what we're talking about. The key thing I think to know about, to get a grasp of, is alignment. So if, the A is something of a pyramid. If you see a pyramid and you put values at the base, that foundation stone, and the big theme purpose, they're intertwined. If anyone wants to really understand this type of stuff, Simon Sinek's a great starting point, who talks about start with the why, of why you do stuff. So the alignment, the identity, and identity is not just the logo, it's the color palette, the tone of voice, the typography, just every manifestation of that logo, and it's supporting, brand collateral, we call it, has to be a reflection, as with ACE, those 4 values. Yeah. And then you move up the scale. It's like you have to offer the world a promise. I'll spend £10 or £10,000 with you because I believe that investment's going to make me, with £10,000, £100,000.
Yeah.
And that's where you might, I saw an interesting thing recently, which applies to filmmakers. Don't put a string of your work together in a show reel. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. Put 10 testimonials together.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I like when Simon Sinek says start with your why. I'd say end with a must.
Yeah, that's what you've added to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So the brand process is I start with why.
Yeah.
Or the marketing process, whatever. On building the company, and then I end with must, and now I must do this. Well, that's a bit definitive. That's a bit, but exactly, because if you're going to believe in something, you must do it.
Yeah,
and that for me, must is kind of like there's no other option.
Yeah,
exactly. We want there to be no other option than you to say I need to succeed.
So my why hinges on I want to facilitate healthier people and a healthier planet. It's about movement. It's an active lifestyle branding, active lifestyle filmmaking. So someone saw the back of my boot of my car recently. Basically got golf clubs, cricket bats, table tennis set, football, rugby, basketball. They went, you got a mobile Sports Direct. I've got a 12-year-old son, and when we see a park and we want to have fun,
one of those 1 litre cups, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's. The must on that is, I must exercise frequently, because if I don't, I just don't feel right. I like to get out and use, whether it's walk or swim or go to the gym or whatever. And I like to encourage others to do that. You see such a shift. You live near some beautiful countryside, and we often meet up to go, let's just go for a walk. We don't always have a set agenda, but we always have interesting conversations. Yeah. And I just encourage people to, my son is a gamer. He loves sitting gaming. Great. Yeah. That is a really interesting thing to do if you're really into it. But shake it up as well with, oi, we're going football. We're going to play some football. Oh, great. Move your body.
Exactly. And I think the thing is doing that sort of stuff informs what you bring back. So we talked about at the beginning about metaverse, is that I remember playing games. It was like you drive a car on a track and you make it happen. One of the things I've seen that changed was that in the more modern games now, you've got weather.
Okay.
So that's come, but you would code it, but you didn't pay attention to the weather really that much, because you're trying to drive a car as fast as you can. But when you're out and about and walking through the elements, you then go, well, that affects what you wear. It affects you into. So weather's quite a big thing. And then it's lighting. So weather and lighting. So these extra complexities are making the online environments that are created more realistic. But you wouldn't notice that if you weren't out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so the more you're out in the world and nature, the more you can bring back to, let's say, the gaming world to make it feel more real, for example. But there are elements like, I know on the PS5, for instance, you can feel the haptic trigger as it shakes, but now they even got using the volume, the speaker, they're using the speaker to push. So if there's wind, it comes through that same technology is now used to push through. So now you're getting a more immersive experience, but you don't get that unless you're out and about. And I think that's the thing, is that what is it that you can experience in real life that you can bring to the table into another environment, into another world?
See, I'm with this 6-month period I keep referring to. Part of it is like, who's my client? Who am I appealing to? Yeah. And I'm under no illusions. It's 40, 50 and 60-year-old people.
Yeah.
I'm not trying, it might appeal, it'll be a byproduct really. but it's helping be a bridge for people who've lived their career but haven't necessarily appeared on film.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's explaining the metaverse. You know, we've got a demo coming up. We know that we're just absolutely going to knock our clients sideways when they see it, because they've invested in one of your team, Nathan's rendering skills, but we know what that can now do. You know, so we're early adopters, but we know we can take people on a journey with that. And it's just ultimately, you know, we're people to be trusted because we will help you navigate complex waters.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that as a studio, they're probably acing what they do, but the environment or the canvas isn't elevating them enough that people will go, oh, that makes them different from someone else. And I think that's the great thing of having all those years of experience, having been an entrepreneur or being an entrepreneur yourself. So you have an element of sales. And I always use this analogy when it comes to marketing. It's essentially, it's like golf. You do absolutely everything to get the ball on the green. That's what marketing is. And the sales guy is the one that puts it into the hole. Your job is to make the salesperson make it easy for them to sell. And in some respects, do your job well, you don't need to sell. They just want it. Because your marketing is showing how you can serve. And so therefore the sale comes as a result of that. And I think old marketing was always marketing sales. I'm saying no, marketing done as well benefits everybody. And I think really good salespeople actually understand the power of the journey to the green. They understand it. And they know that they should be in their corner, because there's always a debate. Well, who created the sale? Was it the salesman or was it the marketing? I say it's both working in tandem, but in a sense, sales is a lot harder with poor marketing.
I think you know, going back to Cobbler's Children a second, it's what we have to recognise when we're practitioners of photography, filmmaking, designing, etc., film, you know, sort of editing. It's such a noisy world. There's so much competition, and it's if you're not self-promoting, you're not going to play in the Premiership. You know,
so I would say it this way: is that your product might not be unique, but your story is. Yeah. And that's what my job is to get your story out there. So then the people that resonate with you the most, you can work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for instance, I'm not going to say I make coffee better than anyone else. I'm going to tell you the story of how I decided to make the coffee this way in this place. Now I want to work with these guys. You know, and that for me is what makes you unique. And I think that's the thing where people keep trying to innovate the same product, but actually if they tell a better story, there's less innovation in a sense.
We've got an exciting project coming up, Acing Creation, where we're going to go rewilding with Nick, aren't we? The one of your guests.
Nick Goldsmith,
and what I'm conscious of, and I think you totally appreciate, is that you take Mr. Brainwash, where we were filming one of the world's top artists for a highly prestigious gallery with the likes of Boy George and all sorts of other celebrities there. It was a difficult task. You know, the lighting from outside the gallery and inside is completely different. The artwork and the movement around the gallery, all these sorts of, it's stressful. And then we leave that. We've worked, I don't know what time we left Bristol at, say, 9 a.m. and we got home at 3 a.m. The next day. And basically you absorb all that stress and you've worked together, but you haven't had the water cooler moment the next day to go, I really like how you did that, or we really coped with that well, or next time can we do this? So we're going to sit around a fire. We're going to be carving spoons or whatever, sleep under the stars, but to become a stronger team. Yeah. You know, to, like I am sharing aspects of ACE on this podcast, to talk about the 4 values and check in with Creation's core values and your why, and get to know your guys better, because we'll be, you know, looks like we're some of our team are going over to the States soon.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to be pretty intense, isn't it? For 10 days traveling around California, because it's an alien environment. It's not like going up the motorway to
Someone says it's worse than Mars, but there we go.
Yeah. But it's incumbent on us, you know, as leaders, because this is about, you know, what we're talking about is leadership. It's we can nurture people, but we have to check in with ourselves of what type of leaders are we for this age, because it's a different, you know, post-COVID, it's a different age. You know, 100%. People don't work the same patterns. They don't, you know, we're getting very into working on golf projects, and golf's going through huge innovations because people have gone, I don't want to commute and I'd rather play golf on a Friday, you know, and clubs have to change, you know, as in the courses. You know?
And that's it. I think the thing is, what COVID did is it gave everybody the chance to reflect, and then people made big changes as a result.
Yeah.
But I think what you need to build as a business is not that you have to do it every year, but certainly every couple of years, is to take that time out to reflect on the direction of where you want to head. You know, a good principle to have is that you reevaluate where you're heading each year, but you give yourself some time and space to process where you've come from.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very much like, you know, last year for me was all about, you know, dealing with clients, helping them survive, you know, getting through the tough time from the fallouts, you know, and then this year I'm confident of it's about growth. It's about, how do these same clients that were struggling now go to the next level to grow, and in parallel, as they succeed, we succeed. So it's like, what does growth look like? What does recruitment look like? What does retention look like? What you know, but you need time out to think about what you want to build, and I think we don't afford ourselves enough time to do that.
No, I think if you can adopt rituals, it's very helpful. So Christmas has its own energy about it, and it's all, you know, builds up to Christmas Day and Boxing Day. I find that period post Boxing Day to New Year a lovely time to reflect and start to renew. I find January, you know, you're not going to be doing much shooting outdoors for 2 or 3 months. It's a good time to do the sort of preparation work we've been talking about, to study, you know, if you need to get on a course or learn some new skills, to go back to your clients with a strategy for the year, or check in what they think the strategy is. When people, you know, in our culture, August is the holiday month, school holidays, and people go away. I find the best opportunities are always September, October, November, because people often want to get stuff done before Christmas, or their budgets are being set for the next year. So, you know, be kind to yourself if August is a quiet month, you know, make sure you have a holiday, you know.
Yeah, agreed. Agree.
You know, recreation, if you break it down, is recreation. Yeah. You know, it's you know, forest, for rest.
Yeah.
You know, all these words, they have a meaning, you know, that we recreate ourselves when we go on holiday and read a book that we don't usually read, or meet with friends, or try a food that we haven't, you know, travel somewhere, you know. And don't keep peddling.
Well, for me, it's a case of knowing that, you know, being creative, being in the brand is all about telling stories. And even if the story doesn't change, the format will. So like, you know, all right, I've got my story, it's now down, I've gone through this great branding process or whatever, but then it's like, but you need to be on the metaverse. What? Yeah. You know, so sometimes you get the story now, but the way it's executed changes, you know, which was, I got the most beautiful print stuff, but now I've got to stick it on this thing called the World Wide Web. What does that look like? Or social media, what does that look like? These are all revolutions in the way that we communicate. And I think for me, even email, you know, email's probably one of the oldest digital tools out there, but a lot of people use Messenger or Slack or things like that to communicate. So, or WhatsApp. So things have changed, you know, your core talents, your values, your brand, your narrative story, but the execution of it may change. You know, you might do video, but if you had a YouTube channel, well, hang on a minute. So just as much as filming is one thing, distribution is equally as important, and we often overlook it. So it's more than build it and then they will come mentality. It's like build it and then find out who you want to engage with it. But asking those questions, you said brand values is prepare. So you know that once you've built it, you know where to send it. You know, and I think those are the key tenets of
But
what
some people might turn to me and say, what are you doing? You've got a 15-year business and it's very hard to survive in business.
Yeah.
Why on earth are you changing the name? And it's like, but I started it when I came out of corporate life as a corporate web developer. I was trying to offer SMEs web design and development brings corporate to SME market. So it's more affordable, more agile and so on. I don't get hardly anyone asking me about a website these days.
Yeah.
It's you know, you can go on Squarespace and build something, or they have their 10-year relationship with a web developer, or et cetera. It was Wild West frontier 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They are interested, want to know how to do really good film.
Yeah.
They know these phones are amazing and when you can shoot your factory or shoot your people or whatever at a certain level. But that's, you know, we bring documentary filmmaking skills to what we do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know, all about production values. So, as I say, to go back to where we came in, ACE is about preparing you for that journey. So for New England, it ran its course, you know. That might be true of someone else's brand, that they have to think radically.
But that's what I like. You just said that it's run its course. It's understanding when it's run its course. It's understanding that the season's changing.
Yeah.
You know, like for me, you know, we've always had one eye on tech and technology and stuff like that, you know, and it's knowing that there is a bridge between what creation do and what digital do. And we don't want to cross that bridge. You know, creation is about telling stories. The minute we're getting caught up in tech, it's the wrong thing for us. It needs to go over to digital. But it's knowing the boundary lines and it's being comfortable. That's us. That's not us.
Yeah.
And knowing there's enough of what is us to run with, as opposed to keep saying yes to the not what isn't us, and therefore then it distracts what we're trying to do. So I think for me, Andy, it's understanding that, you know, ACE Studio is bringing a whole collective together to produce the best results, to tell the best story. Yeah. And then with that clarity and with that confidence, you have the ability to then say, right, now put yourself on film with all this knowledge and all this work behind you. Therefore, you can't wait for people to see what you're about and what you do, because now, you know, it's easy to tell a story. And I think that's it. I think people are good at watching other people's stories, but find it uncomfortable to tell their own. And I think that's the work that you're doing. So
yeah, and I think to, as we're both doing, you know, with your podcast and other things, it's like you know, just before Christmas, I interviewed you, didn't I?
That's right.
Just as a useful exercise for you to
be on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, exactly. But it makes us very empathetic to when we say to someone, come on, it's time, you're in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And most people who are, you know, run a complex business or have been doing what, you know, if they're talking about the subject they know, they're going to be great. Yeah. They just need the help, you know, to not to be too daunting, you know, and find the access point, you know.
Going back to the cobbler's shoes scenario. It's like everything that we've done successful as an agency is creation. We learned how to do it in-house first before we offered it out. We were afforded that opportunity because we were in a volunteer organisation, and so therefore you didn't want to put the volunteers in charge of large projects, you know, that are paying a fortune. But what it's done is it's set those parameters in place. So like, for instance, I'm not going to sell podcasts unless I'm doing my own, you know, and now we've got clients that do podcasts with us. So it's allowing, so I'm not going to sell metaverse until I understand it, but I'm going to have to take that step back before I'm catapulted into, oh, these guys can do metaverse. Yeah. So it's going to take a bit of time, effort, knowledge, wisdom. Yeah. But we're going through a process, and we've got great people around you like yourselves and that to take us on the journeys.
I was talking to a friend yesterday about how much I love kit. So when I used to play cricket, you know, I had to have a heavy cricket bat. I had the certain type of pads, the gloves, it all ends up in a bag, you know, and then I become someone that people borrow stuff because, I like wearing this than using that bat and all the rest of it. So most of the businesses I'm seeking to work with moving forward, it's all about kit. You know, there's what I call the big six, you know, it's golf, skiing, sailing, sort of yoga and well-being, hiking, you know, these different sports. I think I've mentioned 5, can't remember the 6th for a moment, and cycling. You know, people who spend £10,000 on a bike they love it. It's there.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few people who have secret funds. I'm sure with golf. I just spent £500 on some golf clubs. I'm not telling my partner because it's just I must have that. Know. But it's celebrating those pursuits, those passions, and why you spend £100 or £500. There's always a good reason.
Yeah.
The technology, it makes you play the game better, whatever the game is. So we're about celebrating those pursuits, those passions. Tapping into why someone loves sailing so much. Someone loves, as I say, it's all about healthier people, healthier planet.
It's a nice little boat on the table to talk about
exactly, where you're navigating
So
life.
just lastly then, just to wrap up, how you mentioned how people get hold of you. So it's ace.studio.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I all the admin that goes with the type of change I'm doing, I've accumulated, like a lot of people on LinkedIn, but this is the year of me really working LinkedIn much harder. So I'm actually working with a consultant on LinkedIn strategy at the moment. So the website was the first thing. In the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to be journaling a lot and sharing that content on LinkedIn. So when this comes out and people look at the website, they'll be able to start to see what I'm up to. And it'll be a lot of collaboration with yourself with some of the projects we mentioned.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the sofa. The first one to come back. And I'm sure we'll get you back again as
Lovely.
well.
Thank you. It's been an honor. Cheers.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.